Hi, everyone. This is Carlene with Cosmic ET Conversations, and
I am Kristin Anderson. Hello.
James Spurrier. Hello.
Guess I should tell you my last name too. I'm Carlene Saelg, and we are starting this channel for the basic reason to have a casual conversation about ET experiences and the things that we've experienced individually and collectively, and just things that our friends tell us and all kinds of, happenings that are around us. We may even have some conversations with other people and interviews coming up shortly. So for now, we just want this to be a get to know you opportunity, get to know us and what we're going to be doing with this channel. And we hope to have you stick around for us for these small segments of what it's like to be in the multidimensional space, dealing with ET happenings and also just everything out in the ethers in the multiverse. So we hope this will be enjoyable and entertaining, and we're just going to see what happens. Like I said, we are not scripted, so this is just coming at you today, right now.
We're winging it.
We are totally winging it.
Full on.
Let's see what happens.
Yeah. So
Right.
James, let's start with you just a little intro about who you are and how you've maybe had your first contact or conversations with ET beings, or, just whatever you want to tell us.
Well, I'm me. I don't know how to go any deeper than that.
I love you.
But I will say my first interest in this happened when I was a child. I was in 6th grade, and I was playing with one of my best friends in the backyard, and he actually noticed it first. I didn't even see it, but he goes, "Whoa, look at that, look at that." I'm like, what? I'm looking around, I can't see anything. And he says, "Look, somebody's got a really cool remote control." And I still couldn't see it. And then about waist high, coming around the corner of between our house and just being outside and open, was a ball that was about a beach ball size and a little smaller, and it was reflecting all of the surfaces that were around it. So I couldn't see it at first. And so when I did see it, I was like, oh my God. So I wanted it because I thought it was a toy. And I ran towards it, and it went straight up in the air and was just right above me. And so I still wanted it, so I'm like jumping up in the air trying to get to it. And in the back of the house, there was, a utility box that you could stand up on. And so I'm standing up on this electrical box, still trying to reach the ball that was just staying in one spot right above me. And it stayed there for a while. And then finally it went and it shot all the way across the field, all the way over to Slaughter Junior High, and disappeared. And ever since then, I mean, how could I not be a little obsessed with figuring this out?
Right. So let me ask you a question, James.
That's
Do you feel like that ball was metallic or mirrored, or what did it really look like?
It looked
Like a disco ball?
mirrored. It looked mirrored.
Mirrored. Mm-hmm.
Because it was literally just reflecting everything that it was around. And so I couldn't see it when it was around the hedges, because all I could see was green, until I could see it, the shape of it.
That's very cool. So cool. Yeah, that's very cool. So I've not actually experienced that, but I have seen orbs, like light orbs, but not these dense materialistic things that you saw. And I've since learned that they're actually like cameras and data collection and stuff, right?
Oh yeah, I'm sure. But I definitely felt like I was being observed.
Oh, those are cameras.
Yeah, they're like some kind of a off-world technology that they're just observing us, right?
Yeah, I could see.
So then maybe the next day or 2 days later, Robert came to my door and knocked on the door, and he goes, "There's another UFO. It's outside. You got to come. You got to come. But this one's huge." And so we lived in McKinney Heights, and we're walking up the block, and all of a sudden it made me think of being in LA during the earthquake, because everybody was outside. And so all the neighbors were outside, and I noticed that one of the neighbors, who was a science teacher, had his telescope up, and they're all looking at something, and up in the sky was a large craft.
Wow.
And it was a disc shape, and on top of it was, and I only could see this part until after I looked through the telescope. We all got to take turns, and on the top of the disc was something that was going swinging around it like that.
Oh, wow.
And we all stood there and watched it for the longest time. And then I don't really know what happened after that. I guess we just went home, but I don't really recall that part, actually.
Oh, yeah. So how old were you? This was still when you were just a kid?
Yeah, it was in the summer of, I would say, in my 6th grade, when I was in the 6th grade. So I guess it was like 1976, 77, maybe.
Are you still in touch with any of the neighbors and friends who were also there? That would be really interesting.
Well, unfortunately, Robert, who had really been on my mind quite a lot, for some reason I hadn't thought of him in many, many years. I did start thinking, wow, I would love to talk to him about it, because we never ever spoke of it after we were kids. We did talk about it when we were kids, some still, and because we had other interesting things happen together. But as we got older, we never spoke of it again. And I was thinking, wow, I'd be curious to know what his take on it was now. And then he was really, really, really on my mind so much. And I heard that he had passed away. He had just passed away. And so I'm not going to get to have that conversation.
At least not on this plane of existence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So I have a really quick question for you, James. I remember you telling me this story just a few years ago when I still lived in Texas. Kristin and I are in Florida. James is in Texas. And I believe you told me that there was a news story that came out right after you had this happening. And wasn't it that well, everyone saw it, right? Everyone saw it, but then the news kind of convinced them of something else. Am I recalling that right?
Well, yes, it was kind of interesting because, of course, when Robert and I saw the first one, my sister was babysitting us, even though I didn't need a babysitter, but Robert did. And we both ran inside the house, and we're like, "Oh my God, we just saw a UFO!" And we're like freaking out. And she's like, "No, you didn't." And so we're like, "Oh, okay." And so it kind of shut down the conversation until the next day or the day after, when we saw the big one. And then after we saw the big one, and when I was at home, my dad, who was always a believer in UFOs, said, I told him what happened, and he said, "Oh yeah, no, that didn't happen." And I thought it was weird because
he believed.
He was just questioning me about it. But then it came on the news, and it was like in the suburb of McKinney, Texas, blah, blah, blah. And basically we saw a weather balloon is what they said it was.
Oh, the
And so
news
Dad
was telling us that.
yeah. And so my dad was like, see. And so after that, I didn't really think about it for many years until I told the story again to one of my friends. And I said, but then they said on the news that it was just a weather balloon. And my friend's like, well, of course that's what they would say. And then I don't know why, it just is so strange that it kind of woke me up to
False narratives.
all of it really again. And then I'm like, oh yeah, that didn't explain that silver ball I saw. And so very interesting.
Very interesting.
Well,
And now, so you've been experiencing this since you were a kid, and all through now, like you're in your 50s now, so you've had experiences all through your lifetime. I know, just as we have, right?
yeah.
Well, I haven't had experiences quite like that, but yes, I have had experiences, and definitely a lot of what I would say is communication in dream state. I've had a lot of dreams that I'm pretty sure are real.
Right.
So
Okay, cool. So from here, let's talk to Kristin and find out a little bit about
Hi.
you and how you are and what you do. And
So,
you're an ET.
right? I say I'm an alien,
We all are, right? I'm
Right.
an alien. James is an alien.
we're aliens.
Yeah.
The hybrids, right? I haven't had any experience like that where I actually saw a physical ship or something. I think that's really, really cool. And when I
Yeah.
hear that, what's that?
I said it was amazing. Yeah.
Right? And then part of me thinks maybe I have experienced that, but I just don't remember. Because that's another possibility.
That happens a lot.
Yeah.
But I have more like communications, like voices. My first experience, I would have to say, was when I was a teenager, and I literally heard in my body, but it wasn't coming from me, the words, "I love you, Kristin."
Oh, nice.
That's all I heard.
That's so beautiful.
It
That's
was
the
beautiful.
highest vibration, right?
It was really beautiful, but at the same time, I was like,
Who's that? Who's here?
what was that? Who is that? Who is
did they
that?
answer you?
No, that was it. And I was like, whoa, that's crazy.
Yes.
But again, I was in like a deep, like a trance, like meditative state that, I was after that communication. I was looking for God.
Mhm. Can I
And
ask you a question?
yeah,
Did you have you throughout your life just heard your name being called or anything like
no,
that?
I mean, no, that was like the first time that I had a communication like that. And it was the only time that I've actually heard my name.
Uh-huh.
I do hear other verbal communications, but it hasn't been my name.
So did you try after that happened, what did you do to like, I'm just thinking of myself, what did you try to do to make that happen again?
Right? Like everything.
Okay.
Everything. I was looking, I was questioning, I journaled a lot. At that time, I was a big churchgoer.
Uh-huh.
And so I started asking, I didn't want to make myself seem like I was a crazy person. Like Jesus was actually talking to me, or God just chose me to speak to.
Yeah.
But I also wanted to have more communication. But I also wanted to find somebody else who knew what I was talking about.
Right. Yeah.
And I couldn't find that person.
How
Certainly,
old were you?
certainly not in the church. I was probably 12, 13,
Wow.
right
And,
around.
and how
right.
did that progress? How did that progress? Like I mean, I'm sure, at least for me, I would know every single time that happened. You know, you're just
Oh, yeah.
always going to remember it.
Yeah.
And so, did it just progress throughout time, or was there long spaces between? And did you find something that you felt like was making it happen more for you?
No, so I started looking, and I first dove into my own religion because this was God, right? And my religion was Christianity.
Okay.
And so I was just trying to pray and just keep asking and asking, but nothing really was happening. And then I started looking into other religions. And then I just started to realize that religions were not the place. You know, no matter which one, it was not, they didn't understand, at least at the base level, what this was, right?
Okay.
Maybe if you go high enough up, they might understand what that is, but they also keep it from the people. Right? They close those doors. But, you know, individually, you can access that. And I found access through, I didn't know it at the time, but meditation. I didn't call it meditation, but just listening. I basically just started to sit and listen and wait. If you wait long enough,
Yeah.
you start to you expand. If you wait long enough, you expand.
This is so true.
And your body just dissolves into nothing. And then that's when stuff started happening, you know, but you've got to sit there and wait. And that's the
You know,
hard part. Society's not built for that.
I think when I was a child, I got a lot on my report card, daydreams a lot. But really, what often happened to me was I would fall into this stare that I didn't want to pull myself out of. And I think that was maybe my meditation of sorts.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Like if you're just zone out,
Yes.
that's the place.
Mhm.
That's the place where it happens. That's the place where you can start to gain that communication. And it's really interesting that in school, they sort of beat that out of you as a child, because as a children are already connected.
Yes. Yeah.
And school, and I'm kind of really passionate about this. I'm an unschooler. So we don't do school. People really get freaked out about that, but
So
I
you have
never
a
wanted,
child that you
I have a
unschool.
child that I unschool. Yes.
Got you.
Thank
Okay.
you. Thank
I
you
do
for
not
that
have children.
clarification.
James does not have children. So
Okay, so
yeah.
I have a child, and we have, I would say 96% of his life so far, he has had no school.
That is so awesome. You're a trendsetter.
That's incredible.
Well, you know, you're just
Yeah.
doing things differently, and that's
And
what has to happen.
I'm doing things very differently. They do call it radical unschooling, but this is the reason, like, I just could not put
Indoctrinate
him in that room with these rules. I was just like, no, you want
No.
school, you go to nature. And I think when I was a kid, and after that happened to me, and I started to realize that religion wasn't the answer, and these constructs of society were not the answer, and that's not where God lived. Like, my mom was always trying to get me to go to church. And it was like, I mean,
Pulling
we
teeth.
would fight hardcore
too.
over it.
Me too, with my
And
mom.
I'd be like, no, I'm going to go sit in the garden. You want to know God? Go sit in the garden. Done.
Yeah.
Done. And there's an Emily, I think it's Emily Dickinson, her poem. I'm going to find it.
Okay,
I'm going to find it and read it. I actually
Yeah.
might have it on this shelf right here.
cool. If you can't find it, we'll put it in the link below the video for YouTube.
And it's literally about that. It's about church and God and finding that connection. And she talks about going into the garden and sitting, and the birds are giving the sermon, and the flowers,
Love it.
the decoration of the temple. Like, it's pretty poem.
That's awesome.
I have a question. I have to know more about the voice. So when you heard the voice, has it been different voices, or is it always the same voice?
So that one time I got that communication that said, "I love you, Kristin," that was one voice.
Mm-hmm.
The other communications that I've gotten that are a voice
Mm-hmm.
have been different beings, different, even people that are alive, who
Yes.
would send me messages,
Telepathic.
telepathic messages. But that one has never happened again. The second time I would say that it might have been the same one is when I got this message, and I call her the Dragon Lady, which is why I said I kind of identify with that a little bit. But it was more of like almost like a channeling. I wouldn't say a channeling because I didn't leave my body, but I was like compelled to write this information down. And it was basically yelling at me, telling me that I'm avoiding things that I need to be looking at. And I was like, okay, I think I got it this time. Because it was not a delicate message.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So as a child, I mean, my whole life, I have heard somebody call my name. Ever since I was a child, I would hear a voice and it would call my name, and I would wake up, and there's nothing there, and so whatever. But
Yeah.
as I got older, I one time was praying, and I was praying really hard because one of my cats had an accident, and I was so tearful about it, and had lit a white candle, and I was praying and meditating, and I heard a voice right inside my ear say, "You were blessed."
Oh, nice.
And it was a beautiful, beautiful female voice.
Nice.
Now, the other voice that I've always heard has been a more commanding male voice.
I had a
Yeah.
very commanding male voice call my name out. And this was actually when I was an adult, so not when I was a kid. And similarly, I think we've all had similar experiences, especially with religion, and kind of rejecting that because of all the restrictions and the rules and expectations, and that's just not going to work for me, even though I grew up Catholic and went to CCD until I was in the 12th grade.
Wow.
Till I was a senior, but still the whole time questioning everything, just always being viewed as the problem kid because I had questions that they could never answer. And I was finally just like, this is not for me. And I rejected Jesus for the longest time. Until I was an adult. And I've now actually had probably 6 different experiences where Jesus and I have had full-on interaction, conversations. I was in his presence. He would come to me as a vision, and just different things that we can get into a little bit later. But I want to actually tell you about this voice that I heard. And I was in a dead sleep. And this was when I lived in Texas, and I heard this very commanding male voice just yell out my name to the point where I woke straight up, like sat up in my bed, and it was like, "Carlene." And I was like, "What?" Like, and I sat up and I was like, I looked around, I'm looking in the room, I walked the house, I'm like, okay, I really feel like this came from outside in the yard.
Right.
So I went outside and I looked around and I still didn't see anything. And I just stood there and I waited and I waited and I didn't hear anything and I didn't see anything. So I was like, okay, well, you got my attention. If you need to tell me something, just let me know. Tell me what it is. But I never did hear anything beyond that, and I actually, at this point, I was already deep into my practice of practiced meditator and all of these things. So I had also asked a friend of mine who is also very psychic. And I said, hey, this thing happened to me. What do you think of it? And she had told me, I think that's a new guide or spiritual presence that has come in to just let you know excitedly that they're there for you. And at first I was like, that sounds kind of cool, but it was very abrasive. So I had this question in there, like, oh, I'm not so sure it actually is, because it was abrasive.
I feel like, okay, this is kind of interesting. So when you get into those zone outs or those meditations, or you're in that sleep state where you are opening up and your vibration is actually different, right? You're vibrating higher in that sleep state. Your brain waves
Totally.
are going into gamma.
Yes, they are. That's so interesting.
And then the beings, because they're not down here, they're not in this density, they're at a higher density. So as we start to get closer, my guess is that they're screaming to get to you, and you're just almost touching where they are, and they're like, Carlene, and you're like,
yeah, maybe.
But because it's such a shock, you wake up and break the connection.
Yes.
Right? Because as soon as you hear that, you're like, oh, and then the connection's busted.
And I think what that is, because what I've noticed, because this has continued to happen to me. I guess it's been maybe 3 years now since I've heard the voice call my name. But I think what stops it is fear.
Fear. Yes.
Yeah, because when I woke up like that, like it literally stopped my breath for a second.
Jarring.
It was very jarring, and definitely brings you back down into the dualism and the density.
Exactly. To the point where I literally am like, oh dang, I'm sorry, come back.
No, tell me more.
And then getting back to that state after being jarred out of it like that is like nearly impossible.
I haven't back to it. Yeah. So that's interesting that we've all had that.
If we could get into that state and go into it knowing that it could feel fearful, knowing that and being like, it's, we're going to overcome that as we go in there. It's safe to do this. We're not giving up our body. We're just getting a communication, and just be able to relax into that state and get like a deeper conversation.
I think that's good. And I think that we have to set intention to not have fear, because it is the first instinct that happens, is this like, but then you're excited afterwards, but you've got that fear thing. But the 2 times that I saw the light beings in my room, what I noticed was that my body was in a complete relaxed state, and I looked over and I see this being that only looked like light, and it was bending over doing something on the ground next to my bed. And I went, huh. And I turned my head back the other way. Like it was like, and it turned its head and looked at me. So it saw me noticing it. But I think what happened was I was not in a fearful experiment. My body was not like, shooting off, I'm scared. And so I think that's why it happened.
What was the being look like a softly formed light?
So it happened twice, and the first time I only saw half of the being, because it was as if it was standing in the middle of my bed, like its feet were on the floor,
Through the bed.
but its waist was over me, and it was working on my body.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, I feel this. This is happening. And again, I didn't have the fear. And I also didn't have the other thing that I think stops it, which is the excitement that it's happening.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's about neutrality that makes the experience happen longer.
For sure.
But it worked on my body, and it just looked like a figure of light. There was no face. There was head, arms, legs, but there was no feature.
Yeah. Yeah. So I saw the same beings when I gave birth to my child. So I left my body when I gave birth and went through the golden portal, basically to the gates of life, I say. And it was, you come out of the portal and it's just bright white light. And there were many beings like the one that you're describing, all standing there. And I reached out my hand and touched the hand of one of them standing there. My hand was the same as their hand. I was the same light being. And as soon as I touched the hand of this being, I was back in my body.
Interesting.
And the midwife was like, okay, don't push. And I was like, what are you talking about?
Whose hand?
Whose hand?
Mm-hmm.
Whose hand did I touch?
Mm-hmm.
That was the soul of my child. That's my child.
Oh
So
my God.
I literally brought my child back on to the planet in the body.
That is amazing.
It was
That is
incredible.
so cool.
And I've heard a lot of people talk about these light beings. I know that Dr. Joe, Dr. Joe Dispenza, who does those week-long meditations.
Yeah.
There have been a couple of interviews where some of the people that attend those week-long advanced meditation sessions, they do like these healing circles. And these beings are there. And some people in the room can see them. And they will report these tall light beings. And I'm like, those are the souls of the people who are in the room.
Mm-hmm.
That's you. What you're looking at is you. That's awesome. That's my take on it. And it could not always be you. It might be somebody else as well. Like in your situation, you were in your body looking at another being who was working on you. So that probably wasn't you.
No.
That was somebody else. But if somebody else was in the room watching you and this other being, they would have seen two of those beings, you being one of them.
Oh, that's cool. That's
right.
very, yes.
So when in Dr. Joe's group, when they're all sitting around in a circle and somebody on the left side of the circle looks over and sees this being on the right, it's possibly that spirit of that person who's sitting there. You're raising your vibration so that you can actually really converge and have that conversation.
Because they're lowering themselves to communicate with us, which is going to be very difficult.
Right.
So I do like your analogy. Hey, can you hear me? They're yelling.
They're yelling because they're like they're lowering down, which is hard for them, and we're lifting up, which is hard for us. You have to be tenacious and have such a willing drive to sit
So
and wait, truly.
So, you know, I want to tell you about two instances that I have completely different experiences with two completely different ET species, if you will. And one of them, I'm going to say, well, it was a gray being, right? One of the small grays, the alien grays. And when you talked about James being neutral, I experienced that same thing. And for whatever reason, again, when we're asleep and we're in that in-between state, or we're in that lucid dreaming state, we have the ability to connect so much easier into these multidimensional timelines, or space, if you will, or where time and space is not the same as the 3D world, right? So in one of these instances, I just woke up and noticed, I'm sure this ET being is the reason I woke up. I felt them, or I sensed them being in the room. And my wife was asleep next to me. She didn't wake up, so she was oblivious to this whole thing happening. But it was a gray alien who I noticed was just walking past the foot of my bed. And I'm looking at it, and he sees me, and he's holding what I presumed was like a grocery bag, like a plastic grocery bag. Who knows what he was actually holding?
Right.
Some kind of a bag,
Something.
who knows what was in it?
Yeah.
But I don't want to think about all that, because I know that they're not, you know, pleasant beings. But the neutrality of it, and the fact that I did not feel fear, allowed me to just say, I see you, and it just casually walked past and left. So nothing happened, like nothing negative or bad happened, and nothing positive or whatever. It was just a very neutral occurrence, and it just walked past, and I was like, okay, that wasn't so bad. That's not so scary. And I think the key here is they will leave you alone if you're in that place of neutrality, or something higher than neutrality, meaning the love vibration, or, you know, joy, happiness, whatever it is. But once you start to feel fear, then they're like, oh, we gotcha. You know? So, but again, I do want to iterate this point right now. This is 2023, June of 2023.
Yeah.
And these darker beings, these negative beings, are not in our solar system anymore. They've been expelled, so we can actually be in more of a place when we have these experiences with ET beings, that we can know for sure that we can be relaxed about it, right? But still use your discernment. We still have to use our discernment, right? And we have to feel, what does it feel like? Do I feel okay? Do I feel safe? Do I feel loving, you know, positivity? And if it doesn't feel that, then get away from it, right? Like, close it off, make it go away.
And
But
I'm sorry, and are all of the beings already gone, or is it a process? And that's really why we're needing to exercise our discernment with the beings that we're encountering.
so it is my understanding, through my own research and people that I follow that are very well versed in ET happenings and occurrences, that the ETs, the negative ETs, or the dark ETs, are actually gone from our solar system. So we may still have some hybrid type situations that are still here on Earth, but they are mostly human. So they're not going to be of that same fearful, scary, negative, dark vibration that is, you know, sometimes a little hard to.
When were they expelled?
So I want to say it was early 2021, and some people,
Recently.
yes, very, very recently. So remember, this has only been a year or two now since this has occurred. And some people that I enjoy following, just to kind of give our audience some idea of some other people to corroborate, or to have some additional information, is Dr. Michael Sala, Elena Danan, and Alex Collier. And there are some other people too, but I think that's enough for now that I can't really remember. But I want to tell you about the other being that I experienced on the opposite end, that was totally love and light and joy and, oh my gosh, I want more of this kind of thing that happened. And this was one of my conversations, if you will, or meetings with Jesus. And I do call Jesus an ET being. Sorry if that offends, but not so sorry, because he is part of my family, my star family, as James is and as is Kristin. So we feel okay with saying what it really truly is, right? Jesus was an ET being, and I know this. And my experience, I've had many, like I said, but this one was right when, so I've been in the healing arts and been very psychic my whole life and all this stuff for over 20 years, being in the healing arts, where I do body work and energy healing, energy medicine, all the different things. I'm an herbalist, and you go, all the things. Anyway, this one day, I'm in that in-between place where I'm sleeping, but not quite sleeping. And Jesus comes to me, and I just wake up and I turn to my left because he's right here on the left side of me. And he hands me a mason jar that is full of liquid light, like it is effervescent light. And it's just liquidy, but bubbly, and there's colors shooting all through it. And he just hands it to me. And I know immediately, telepathically, that he wants me to drink it, like it's an elixir of some kind. And I don't even question, because my discernment and my love feelings and knowing full well who's beside me, I take it and I drink it. And from that moment on, my whole energy medicine and healing profession has shifted. And this was probably about 5 or 6 years ago when that happened, to doing a lot of my work in the other realms. So yes, I do still a lot of work on the 3D plane, but in the other worlds, I guess on another plane, etheric planes, I would have souls lined up from my door outside all the way down the street, like as far as my eye could see. I would have these souls lined up to come and get a healing or an alignment or some kind of shift to happen.
Did that feel overwhelming to have a line?
I'm so
like
glad you
that?
asked me that.
I'd be like, oh my God, is there enough time?
Exactly. At first, I was so joyful that I had this opportunity, and Jesus was like, go do it. You got this, right? And I was like, okay. And I would be doing all these healings all night long, that I would wake up exhausted, absolutely exhausted. And it would take me a little while to, be able to function and get on with my day. And I say a little while, like maybe a couple of hours in the morning to revamp and what have you. And then I was good for the rest of the day. But probably about 6 months or so went by, and I was on vacation in Florida, actually, from Texas, where this actually happened. And I was in a hotel room. And of course, I'm in this very lucid place where I'm over there, but I'm here and I'm doing all these healings. And I just said, Jesus, I can't do this anymore. This is so much. And he says, Carlene, just do what I do. And I knew immediately what he meant.
Ooh, what did he mean?
Yeah, like I didn't have to. He was basically saying you could heal instantaneously, just like I do, just like I did when I was on the planet. Just do what I did, or just do what I do. Yeah. And at that moment, things shifted so that I was no longer exhausted, and I was doing these healings on the other, in the other realm, but also in the 3D world, just being able to have my clients experience these miracles.
Right.
And it's been amazing. It's been several years now, but still, it's what catapulted me into being able to be open to my star family and being able to meet them, which we'll get into that in another conversation. But for now, just being able to experience Jesus telling me straight out, here's the gift. You've already had it. I'm just amplifying it for you. And go do what I do. Stop making it hard. He basically was like, stop making this so hard.
I am so good at making it hard. It's like.
And you know what? I think that has to do with all of the indoctrination and the duality and I don't know, what do you want to call it? The heaviness of this planet for so long, for eons, that we had to fight for every crumb and scrap that we could get. And now we don't have to.
Yes. It's like stepping into that ease seems like, how could it be that easy? Right. But I do know that feeling of neutrality. And when you do drop into that place and you're expanding, there is no fear, but there's also no joy. It just is.
Yes.
And I remember so clearly when I was going into birth, like I was getting ready to give birth, they call this labor land. And I went a lot farther probably than most people go because I left my body. And I haven't heard of another woman who has had this experience. By the way, I've talked to a lot of women and midwives, but it is a potential. And I think it will become more prevalent as women understand that you can get to that place and just totally surrender and leave, and it will be like an epic, beautiful, painless, joy-filled experience. But when it first started happening and I was going into labor land, I was laying in a tub and I had my cell phone on the side of the tub. And I remember it fell in the water. It's a brand new iPhone. It fell into the tub. And I remember just looking at it. And I looked at it and it registered phone,
Water
at the bottom, water. It was just an observation. It was that place where you become the observer. You're just looking without a reaction.
Yes.
And my mom came in and she was like, "Oh, the phone is in the phone." You know, and I was like, there's a person, she's freaking out. Okay, like I was leaving.
So I have a question about this.
Yeah.
I wonder, you were very aware and very cognizant of the whole thing happening, like very, very tangible.
Yeah.
And I wonder if other women are having this, but they don't have the memory of it. Like they can't bring it back. Because I wonder if we can choose, or honestly, I don't know because I don't have kids.
Right? I don't know. I think there's so much fear around birth that I think some women have had certainly an ecstatic birth, and they talk about orgasmic birth. But even an orgasmic birth, when you're orgasming through the birth, you're still in your body. I was not in my body.
Right.
I was gone. That's why when I came back and the midwives were like, "Pick up your baby," I was like, "What are you talking about?" Like, I was like, "Who is this person? Where am I?" Like, I had no idea where I was. But it is possible. And there's a lot of women who have a really amazing epic births. But I think the reason why I went so far is because I had that previous experience with meditation, which I wrote about in my book, where I was literally in a meditative state, like 14 to 17 hours a day for months.
Wow.
And
that's some serious work right there.
Yeah, it's a experience, but I felt the thing that I felt at that time was that neutrality and almost like a knowingness of this is just the way that it is. And there was no fear, there was no joy, there was just that same observer feeling. So I think I dropped into it very quickly when I was giving birth because I already knew what it felt like.
It's interesting how you were describing it, because to me, what kept coming to me was, this is just how it is.
Yeah.
It's just a remembering. You're giving us the experience, but I think it's a remembering for the collective, because I think that is what happens in birth. Yeah. Exactly what you just described.
Yes.
Right. Because
coming through the tunnel and coming
right?
right in. Yeah.
We make these contracts and then you were just like, let me go escort you in.
Yeah. And I mean, everybody was standing around. There was a lot of beings there, and they went back into, that I could see is probably 30 or 40 standing around. They were not all exactly the same size. There were different sizes. There were definitely unique, different ones, but all the same. And there was one standing there who kind of communicated in a way like, here you go. Like, take this one's hand, take this one. And I put my hand out and I was like, got it. It was a group effort. It was a group effort. Yeah, it was intense.
Very
That's
cool.
Amazing. It was intense.
So you guys, this is our first episode. This is our first episode of our podcast, Cosmic ET Conversations. And I want to maybe just end it here so that we can not make it too long for folks, and we can just continue this conversation on a weekly basis, so you can expect to see more of us quite often. And I would love to invite you that if you want to, you being the audience, if you want to get in touch with us, we'll put an email in the link so that you can reach out and we can start scheduling interviews to talk with other people. But we have so much to talk to you about that it might be just the three of us for a little while, and then we'll start opening it up to conversations with others. But we will definitely have a bigger, much more interactive platform. But for now, this is Carlene and Kristin and James, and this is Cosmic ET Conversations, and we look to see you again next week.
Nice. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.